This is a video submission for Classy Rail's One Line Wonders Challenge. Thanks for pushing me to make a video on my passions. Hello everyone, I'm a casual New York City transit enthusiast, and today we will be walking along the M14 Select Bus Service's bus route and show you some important destinations along the route. This walk will take a little while, however, so sit back and enjoy learning about the M14 Select Bus Service's history. As usual, the M14 Select Bus Service route originally was a streetcar line built by the Metropolitan Street Railway in 1899. It ran along 14th Street, stopping at Union Square and turning on Avenue A. Then, streetcars were eventually phased out in New York City like most other cities in the United States of America. The New York Omnibus Corporation would take over the route in 1936. Bus service along Avenue D would be added on January 28, 1951. A subsidiary of the MTA would later take over the route in 1962. Let's skip time a bit. After the buses were moved to the Michael J. Quill Bus Depot, the branches we know and love of the M14 Select Bus Service. Did you mention that this bus route has branches? Were named. They were dubbed the M14A and the M14D. But there was another branch that didn't stand the test of time, the M14C. After 9/11, the block that connected 14th Street to Avenue D would be blocked, as the Con Edison plant in the area is located around there, and they decided to tighten security around the power plant facility. Therefore, the M14D had to be rerouted along part of the M14C's route to get to Avenue D. The M14C and M14D bus routes would later consolidate in 2002, going along the route of the M14D. However, the MTA decided to be silly and reinstate the M14C in 2004, where they made the M14C go along Avenue C until Houston Street, where it would join the M14D at its Avenue D Columbia Street bus stop until the end of the M14D's route. This bus route would face several difficulties and complaints to the point where the MTA got rid of the route once more, and this time for good.
No Avenue C residents complained when the M14C was removed in 2010. This is my first video, so research is very sloppy, sorry.
The M21 bus route would serve Avenue C afterward until the M9 was moved from Avenue B to Avenue C in 2010. The M14A/D bus routes were planned to become Select Bus Service routes in 2019 and became an official Select Bus Service route in June of 2019. If you don't know what a Select Bus Service route is, I'll tell you now. If you do, you can skip to this timestamp shown on screen. Okay, a Select Bus Service route, you can also say SBS for short, is New York City's version of a bus rapid transit route. Bus stop routes in New York City are very frequent, about every other block or so. The MTA has been trying to fix this as of late, with many stops being consolidated in the most recent Bronx bus redesign to increase speeds and reliability of the routes modified in the most recent Bronx bus redesign, as many stops were redundant and were often skipped by the buses. Stop consolidation on the M14 bus route, now officially the M14 Select Bus Service, with its branches known as the M14A Select Bus Service and the M14D Select Bus Service, along with the new addition of MetroCard and coin ticket machines, made older riders like my mother very confused for about a month. This fatigue would eventually wear off, which would coincide with the bus lanes added in October of 2019 along most of the route, as some streets are too narrow to implement bus lanes throughout the routings of the buses, namely Avenue A, which is a two-lane street, and Essex Street, which is the continuation of Avenue A into the Lower East Side. The M14 Select Bus Service is originally going to run with a pattern like the M15 Local and the M14-SBS versions of the route. The local version would presumably go along the previous routes of the two buses, while the Select Bus Service would run express in some stops. During late nights, the M14 Select bus service would have been replaced by the L14 Select bus service, which would go from the west side to the Bedford Avenue subway station on the L train. The M14 was converted into a select bus service due to the L train shutdown to renovate the Canarsie tunnels, which were in severe condition after Hurricane Sandy hit. The local service pattern and the L14 Select bus service plans were scrapped after Governor Andrew Cuomo, yes, that Cuomo, decided that the L train shutdown plan would be modified. This put the project on hold until the MTA expressed their intent on making the M14 an SBS route. This plan would make what we know as the M14 Select bus service /SBS today. Fun fact, the bus lanes and busway on 14th Street, oh yeah, did I mention that there would be a busway on 14th Street, worked so well on the first day of running that the buses went too fast that the MTA had to tell bus operators to slow down on the busway. Well, that was a little too long. Delancey Street and Essex Street is the main intersection that connects Manhattan to the Williamsburg Bridge, which leads to the neighborhood of Williamsburg in Brooklyn. Here, you can transfer to the M9, B39, the shortest bus route in New York City. Fun fact. The F, M, and J trains and Z trains, if you consider that an actual train line in the New York City subway system. Me personally, I do not. And also the main focus of this video, the M14 Select bus service /SBS, specifically the M14A SBS. Here we have the Essex Market, a little grocery store / food vending market, which has replaced the original Essex Market just a minute or two walk away from the new one. This Essex Market has a real movie theater and has the market line downstairs, a place to hang out during the night with friends and have some good quality food. Unfortunately, it's closed down for now. There's also some goofy stores here, and many businesses have closed down here. This area is still an important place due to the chains that links around here, with an interchange between the F and J, M, and quote-unquote Z trains, along with the Manhattan Crosstown service and the M14A SBS. The B39 serves as an accessible option to get across the East River via the Williamsburg Bridge from Marcy Avenue Station on the J and M trains, which is an accessible station, to the Delancey and Essex Street station, which has partial accessibility in the form of escalators, which many physically disabled people are unable to use. The M9 is also an important bus link from Chinatown to the Delancey and Essex Streets, where they can easily transfer to the aforementioned transit services that serve the area. Now, let's get into why the M14 SBS is an important transit service for the people of the Lower East Side, which is actually 4 neighborhoods. The Lower East Side, which has a subsection called Two Bridges, named after the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges, and the East Village, which has a subsection named Alphabet City, which mainly benefits from these bus routes. Two Bridges isn't served by the M14 SBS, so let's throw that neighborhood out of the window. From Tompkins Square Park, the center of the East Village and entry point most people see when visiting Alphabet City for the first time, is about a 10 to 15 minute walk from the closest train station. This is manageable for most people, but for the elderly and disabled, this is a hard feat for them. And for most places in Avenue D, it's a much longer walk to get to the subway. The M14 SBS goes along Grand Street, specifically the M14A SBS. Yeah, the M14A SBS goes along Grand Street, where the eastern section of the route has many elderly residents on it, which frequently use the bus to get to 14th Street. Source: I have ridden around Grand Street several times. Many elderly or disabled people use it as a necessity, even to go just one stop. I don't know too much about the M14D SBS, except there's tons of demand for it. Why, you may ask? There are a bunch of housing developments here, and these developments do their job. They cram as many people in the building as possible. Thus, thousands of people live along Avenue D, and many come using the M14D SBS. Sometimes I have to take the M14 SBS home, and then have to be packed in a sardine can. At least on a train it won't be that bumpy. On a bus, however, yeah, it's rough. It's even worse during rush hours, which would make sense if it still had 10-minute frequencies then. During rush hour, the M14-SBS has 3-minute headways, and it's still very crowded. That goes to show how essential this bus route is to people in Alphabet City and the Lower East Side. People in the East Village also walk to the M14A, and many people use the M14A to get to the iconic restaurants nearby the bus route, which is allowed for fantastic nightlife around the SBS route. Plus, the M14A and M14D have great late-night service at 20-minute headways for the M14A and 10-minute headways for the M14D. This allows for a convenient transit link for where you need to go or want to go, even at 3 a.m. in the morning. But as I stated before, the M14-SBS has its fair share of issues. Frequencies are not so great for a rapid transit line. On the M14A SBS, you have to suffer through 15-minute frequencies off-peak, on a weekday to be clear. And on weekends, buses are constantly late. And, as stated before, the M14D SBS is crowded at all times, with buses only having bearable conditions after Union Square. There are plenty of schools nearby as well as students that live along Avenue D. And there's a bunch of schools along Avenue D as well. So when school ends, they absolutely crowd the buses due to the M14D SBS having 10-minute frequencies. 10-minute frequencies for a rapid transit line in New York City is all good if it can hold a good amount of people. For the amount that the M14 SBS moves every day, however, and the limited amount of capacity on these buses, only holding about 80 to 90 passengers when it's fully at capacity, quote-unquote fully at capacity, there's a lot more room in them. You can fit another 30 people in them easy. That still means only 120 people can be on a bus at all times. Even with the G train, like maybe 300 people can be on it, 400 people can be on it, and you can still breathe comfortably. So, MTA gotta improve those frequencies. And yes, this can happen on the M14 SBS also, when it's transitioning into evening rush hour. And there's still a bunch of shoppers. So you get out of the Burlington and Union Square, and then boom, you get crushed. Yeah. On the other hand, the M14A SBS has more evenly spread amounts of ridership, as there's not a lot of ridership in, the morning, but there's a bunch of ridership from the afternoon onwards, unlike from what I've seen on the M14D, which is, well, lots of people, and then a little break, lots of people for school, and then just like a consistency, then tons of people during rush hour, and then it just makes a sharp turn down. If I'm wrong, please let me know. There's a bunch of shopping outlets at Union Square. The 4-story Barnes & Noble is there, along with the 5-story or 6-story, please correct me, maybe even 7-story shopping complex that houses a DSW, a Five Below, and a Burlington. There's a bunch of fast food restaurants there. There's a Bank of America, I believe. There's a huge Best Buy. There's a lot of stores there, which means a lot of foot traffic, which means a lot more people, and the frequencies on the M14 SBS are just simply not enough to have a comfortable riding experience on those buses to go wherever you need to go on 14th Street. There ain't no way I'm gonna wait 15 minutes to go to Avenue A and 14th Street. I can just walk there in 12 minutes. Yeah. Ugh. First, we can make the 2nd Avenue subway turn on at 2nd Avenue towards Avenue B. Why not Avenue A or any of the littered avenues, you may ask? And here is a simple reason as to why it would go along Avenue B, let alone even turn at all. Alphabet City is a rapid transit desert, excluding the M14 SBS as rapid transit. Alphabet City, as you may have been able to tell, is dependent on this bus. Just adding a subway stop in Alphabet City could and would do wonders to relieve congestion on these buses. If the subway stop was on Avenue B, East 5th Street, riders of the M14-SBS may switch to riding the future T line if they were willing to walk an extra 7 to 12 minutes to the subway station. Plus, it serves a school campus with 3 schools and hundreds of students. Also, Avenue B is a central location in Alphabet City. You may think that the streets on Avenue B are too narrow to place stations. That's what my friend said. But I have a plan. Yeah, that's my plan. This station would also serve Tompkins Square Park, the park that hosted the Tompkins Square riots, that also serves as a communal spot that has many concerts and sometimes parades going through it. Source: my own experiences. I just need to mention that for people skeptical of my proposals. There may be some problems though. The street is most likely too narrow for trains to run under, with the mezzanine maybe being a lot wider than the avenue itself. Even with the train tunnels being really deep underground, it could compromise some buildings' foundations. Therefore, the MTA may have to pay extra money to secure these buildings, especially with the amount of turns this extension would have, compared to the straight shot that the current 2nd Avenue subway is, excluding the part where it probably turns onto Allen Street, because I'm pretty sure it does turn onto Allen Street, right? And this extension will have the T slightly turn after Avenue B ends at Houston Street. Stop at Delancey Street, connecting to the Delancey-Essex Street station complex. In my opinion, this transfer is much better than the transfer to the B and D at Grand Street, as you are able to take the F and M trains to Broadway Lafayette, where you can transfer to the B and D trains. Plus, the B and D trains do not have a free transfer to the J train, and 3 train lines to transfer to, 4 if you include the Z as an actual train line, is better than the 2 train lines. This could be resolved by making a transfer from Grand Street Station on the B and D to Bowery Station on the J, underground or overground. You would have to go to the Broadway Lafayette Street Station anyway to transfer to the F and M trains to go on the J and Z trains. I also see a lot of demand from Alphabet City to Chinatown, especially along the aforementioned M9 bus route. This could relieve some people off the T train. If the MTA was fine with making a longer trip for an extra useful transfer, they could also make the T train stop at Grand Street, making a station complex with the B and D trains over there. I also forgot to mention that the station complex you would have to make with the L train at 1st Avenue Station for this plan. It's pretty simple anyway. You would just have to make T train riders transfer to the L at 1st Avenue instead of 3rd Avenue. The rest of the route would pretty much stay the same. This would theoretically relieve ridership off of the M14-SBS in general, mainly the M14A-SBS, especially if the elevators work after a while of the station existing. This Alphabet City Connector plan, as I will call it in any other video from now on, could also work for Avenue A. It just wouldn't serve as many people. The MTA could also make a 7th Street St. Mark's Place infill station on the current plan of the 2nd Avenue subway to serve some people that live on 1st Avenue and Avenue A more effectively, and relieve some capacity off of the M14-SBS and the Lexington Avenue line further. But this is unneeded, as the Astor Place 6 train station is nearby, and most people that commute via the subway are willing to walk an extra 5 minutes to their subway station and to kickstart their commute. Either of these plans could work, but if the MTA were to choose the plan that would help more people or the easiest, they would choose the latter for sure. This is because simply it would be cheaper and easier and just a more cost-effective plan. Cost-effective? Maybe not. Because it would help Alphabet City and the Lower East Side a lot. But the MTA is short on money. I'm pretty sure they cannot afford to, build something else. Yeah. You can instead make light rail along the M14-SBS route. Light rail vehicles can have much more capacity than buses. They can also join up to create longer light rail vehicles, which would carry much more people than an articulated bus. But this would require a whole entire new light rail depot in Manhattan, laying down tracks on busy streets and overall just being a nuisance to everyone in the neighborhood. We would rather have more frequent bus service, even if it doesn't benefit us as much as a light rail in the long run. Our city keeps moving, and a lot of construction in the middle of the road won't do good for most of us. It would just make our trips harder to do and achieve. Light rail would be better, but it would be too much of a hassle to do in my personal opinion. If the MTA could do it quickly enough, however, I could see it being a great addition to the NYCTA's modes of transit it has in its arsenal. But since we're in Manhattan, where would we store them? Would we have them continuously run on the streets being automated vehicles? Or would we have them stored on the tracks? Would we destroy a few blocks to make a light rail vehicle depot and maintenance facility? It doesn't seem feasible at all. Sure, we can make them automated and run 24/7, but what about maintenance? Where would we be doing regular maintenance on them? If we just store them out in the open, the weather can damage them and some people with bad intentions can break some parts of the vehicle. There could be a natural disaster that could short-circuit the vehicles, destroy them. Someone could even steal the light rail vehicle off the tracks. That would never happen, but imagine if somebody had a tool that could lift something as heavy as a light rail vehicle. It's just simply not feasible enough for the MTA to consider doing it at all, in my opinion. The M9 bus route runs every 15 minutes off-peak and every 10 minutes in rush hours. These are great for a New York City bus route, but these buses often get bunched up due to insane FIDI traffic from my hypothesis and sharp curves that the bus takes after going off Park Row, which can cause these buses coming every 4 minutes until 5 buses pass by, or you have to wait 50 minutes for the next bus. You might as well just walk to where you need to go. Bus lanes, even in one direction, could help this bus route a lot. Stop consolidation with proper announcements saying that this bus stop will be closed. The MTA really struggles with that. Could be enacted. Speeding up journeys on the M9 bus route. The M9 would be a fantastic bus route if those measures were in place at any place they could be implemented. The M8, which runs along 10th Street in its time in Alphabet City and along 8th and 9th Streets in the East Village, runs every 30 minutes at all times of day. This bus cuts through Lower Manhattan and could very well be an important crosstown bus link in the neighborhood it cuts through. Even an extra 2 buses an hour would help this bus route a lot. Even an extra 2 buses an hour would help this bus route a lot. Even an extra 2 buses an hour would help this bus route a lot. All the same measures should be enacted on this bus route, except bus lanes, as this bus route often runs only on 1 to 2 lane streets. This would most definitely boost ridership on the bus route. These benefits are obvious but can open up a one-seat ride to many places in downtown and a more accessible route, as if you wanted to go to the west side but the M8 wouldn't come soon and the M14-SBS would be here in 5 minutes, you would have to take the M14-SBS and walk or roll if you have a wheelchair for a few streets more to your destination compared to taking the M8, which would most likely be more direct. Plus, this is a crosstown bus. Crosstown buses are the main way of crosstown travel in Manhattan. Thus, a considerable amount of people use them regardless of the horrible schedules. I walked along the route of the M8 once, and it does share some of the route with a lot of buses, which already back up a lot. With extra M8 service, this may be a problem, but did I see anyone on these buses? No. You could reroute them to another street, honestly. These are north-south buses mostly, and also the only really important north-south bus route in Manhattan is the M15-SBS. The M21 bus is also an even more important bus route, as it goes crosstown but along a highly congested strode. Not a street, a strode. Can't believe it. Houston Street was originally supposed to have a subway line going along the whole extent of it, which was cut short with only having 2 subway stations going along a potential Houston Street line. The M21 bus route could be a very worthy replacement of a potential subway along Houston Street. This corridor is very congested and very strode-like in how many lanes there are in the street. You would think the M21 would be a frequent, well-used bus route because of this, right? No, not at all. The M21 has 300,000 riders a year, which only equates to about 824 measly riders a day. This seems a little too little for the role it has in being a crosstown bus line on a busy corridor. It goes along a busy corridor, as stated, making useful transfers with the 1, 6, and all the 6th Avenue line trains being the B, D, F, and M trains. How can we improve the M21, you may ask? Well, this bus route has the most material we can work with. Maybe making one more bus run along the M21 route would be good. It's just one extra bus. The MTA can change it back to a 30-minute frequency. The M21 runs every 12 to 30 minutes. If we had one more bus running along the route, however, you would wait 10 minutes less for your bus. Ridership numbers could increase a lot if this happens. Since Houston Street has a bunch of lanes, you could add bus lanes that could be at the bike lane paths. Because there's already one green painted bike lane, you can make a bus lane and a bike lane together. Like, many bus lanes in Manhattan share lanes with bike lanes. Many bicyclists use bus lanes. So maybe a larger bike lane that could also be used as a bus lane would help a lot. Plus, you can make this bus lane only operated during rush hours and just make it a full bike lane or make it a mixed traffic lane. The M21 has a bunch of potential, and if the MTA can convert some lanes into bus lanes, that could help buses in New York City as a whole. Because the M9 also goes along Houston Street for a part of its route, and it's pretty congested, as you may know. So even just the rush hour only bus lane could help a lot of commutes in the mornings and evenings. The M9 improvements could push some people off of the M14-SBS if they are planning on going to Delancey and Essex streets, while the M8 may make a considerably larger impact. As the M8 is across the west just like the M14, it has transfers to both of its branches, and it's only a few streets apart in its routing, so that could relieve some congestion off of the M14A SBS and especially the M14D SBS. The M21 bus service is in an area without frequent subway service within reasonable walking distance in many areas. And more frequent buses could help Alphabet City and the East Village tremendously, having even more people get out of their car if they even own a car. As riding transit will become a lot more viable option and an actual choice to commute by bus and not a necessity to commute by bus. To attract more riders onto these buses, you would need proven reliability, decent to good service, a bus shelter, a countdown clock at the bus stop, and preferably a button you can click on to hear the arrival time, with the plaque saying its purpose with the braille under that text for accessibility purposes, like there are with many M9 bus stops. There may be a problem with capacity at their bus depots, as the Michael J. Quill bus depot, which houses all of the bus routes mentioned in this video, also houses a lot of buses already, approximately 250, and these buses take up tons of space, and this bus depot is in Hudson Yards. But if the bus depot can house a few more buses at a time, these service improvements could be enacted and would improve the ride of hundreds, even thousands of people and potential passengers. Plus, maybe overnight service could be restored to the M8? Who knows? As long as the MTA gets enough bus operators. Oh yeah, also improve the M14A SBS's headways. Please add 1 to 2 more buses on the MTA off-peak. Frequencies on par with the M14D would be very useful. Also add 1 more bus to the M14D. The school rush needs a lot more buses. If you couldn't tell how passionate I am about my neighborhood's present and future in transit already, you just sat through a 20-minute plus video about buses. Buses are the lifeline of Alphabet City, the East Village, and the whole Lower East Side in general. Some areas of the neighborhood are not particularly well served by rapid transit. The MTA has tried to improve rapid transit access by, say, converting the M14 into a select bus service route, but it's not enough and will never be enough. I support the Alphabet City Connector plan the most, but that seems the least realistic solution to the problem due to the steep cost and the low amount of return the MTA may think they will ever get. I mean, sure, you can use existing infrastructure like bus lanes to place these tracks that I mentioned before for light rail vehicles, but what about maintenance and how would they run? Where would you store them? It's a problem that the MTA may not be willing to fix if they ever put light rail on 14th Street. The bus improvements are first place for me, in my opinion. Why, you may ask? They only acquire a few new bus operators, a number of buses I can have with 2 hands or less running on the bus routes an hour, and the hardest part is finding places to add new bus lanes. most streets these buses run along do not have like 3 lanes or more to put a new bus lane. That's most likely the hardest part of, well, doing the bus improvement plan. The bus improvement plan I mentioned, in my opinion, is the most cost-effective and accessible way the MTA can improve transit in the Lower East Side as a whole. Thank you for watching this video. This is a video from a casual NYC transit enthusiast. I'll hopefully see you in another video, and may you have a nice day!